Let's talk about the two-state solution.
Israel living alongside the new state of Palestine.
It's long been seen as the answer, but remains elusive.
With the war in Gaza, it's back in the headlines.
The only real solution is a two-state solution over time.
A lasting end to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict can only come through a two-state solution.
A future in which two states live side by side in peace and security.
Decades of war, millions displaced, and a land torn apart by bloodshed. This is the story of the Israel-Palestine conflict. But behind the headlines lies a deeper truth. A tale of power, resistance, and the relentless quest for justice. Today on Insight Keep, we unravel the raw, unfiltered history of one of the world's most contentious struggles, and the real reasons behind the recent escalations. Chapter 1. Introduction. The Israel-Palestine conflict is a battle over land, identity, and survival. For decades, the world has witnessed atrocities, countless ceasefires, and a humanitarian crisis that refuses to end. In today's documentary, we dive deep into the historical context, the controversial Greater Israel Plan, the role of global powers, and the devastating toll on Palestinian lives. This is not just a story of two nations, it's a call for humanity. Chapter 2. Historical context. A century of struggle. The roots of the conflict stretch back to the early 20th century when Zionist movements sought to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine. This idea gained traction after World War I when Britain issued the Balfour Declaration in 1917, expressing support for such a homeland, despite the majority Arab population in the region. In 1947, the United Nations proposed partitioning Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. While Jewish leaders accepted the plan, Palestinian Arabs and surrounding nations rejected it, viewing it as unjust. The Declaration of Israel's Independence in 1948 triggered the Arab-Israeli War. By its end, Israel controlled more land than the UN had allocated, and over 700,000 Palestinians were forcibly displaced. This marked the Nakba, or catastrophe, for the Palestinian people, an event that still defines their struggle. Chapter 3. Greater Israel Plan. Fact or fiction? Among the most controversial aspects of Israel's territorial ambitions is the so-called Greater Israel Plan. Rooted in interpretations of biblical scripture, this vision imagines Israel extending from the Nile River in Egypt to the Euphrates River in Iraq. While this plan has not been officially adopted, many view Israel's aggressive settlement expansions in the West Bank and annexation of East Jerusalem as steps toward realizing this vision. Critics argue these actions violate international law and undermine the possibility of a two-state solution. The circulation of maps allegedly tied to this plan has only fueled tensions and mistrust. Chapter 4. Recent escalations and the human cost. The October 2023 conflict marked one of the deadliest periods in the region's history. Sparked by Israeli raids on the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound during Ramadan, violence quickly escalated into full-scale war. Israel's military launched relentless airstrikes on Gaza, targeting residential buildings, schools, and hospitals. The death toll among Palestinians surpassed 10,000, including thousands of children. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble, and over 1 million people were displaced. Hamas and other Palestinian factions responded with rocket attacks, though the asymmetry in casualties highlighted the imbalance of power. Israeli defense systems intercepted most rockets, while Gaza faced devastating destruction. Chapter 5. Role of the United States. A biased mediator? The United States has historically been one of Israel's staunchest allies, providing billions of dollars in military aid annually.
Thank you. Looks credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke? Oh, thank you.
Despite international condemnation of Israeli actions, U.S. administrations have often blocked resolutions critical of Israel at the United Nations. This unwavering support raises questions about America's role as a peace broker.
You know, there was no other way for this war to end than with a hostage deal. And I'm deeply satisfied this day has finally come, for the sake of the people of Israel and the families waiting in agony, and for the sake of the innocent people in Gaza who suffered unimaginable devastation because of the war. The Palestinian people have gone through hell. Too many innocent people have died. Too many communities have been destroyed. In this deal, the people of Gaza can finally recover and rebuild.
Critics argue that the U.S. enables Israel's policies, from settlement expansions to military operations, by offering diplomatic cover and resources. Chapter 6. Media narratives and global reactions. The conflict's portrayal in global media often reflects geopolitical biases. Western outlets frequently emphasize Israeli security concerns.
The music festival turned into a massacre. Soon, partygoers scrambled towards their cars. That's when another kind of fire began. Suddenly, pickup trucks arrived at the spot, filled with Hamas terrorists,
while downplaying Palestinian suffering. Meanwhile, protests erupted worldwide, with millions condemning Israel's actions and calling for justice for Palestine. Countries like Turkey, Malaysia, and South Africa have openly criticized Israel, demanding accountability for war crimes. However, these voices are often drowned out by the influence of powerful Western allies. Chapter 7. Humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Gaza, often described as the world's largest open-air prison, suffers from a crippling blockade imposed by Israel and Egypt since 2007. This blockade has restricted the movement of people and goods, leading to dire living conditions for over 2 million Palestinians. During the recent war, international aid agencies struggled to deliver relief, as Israeli airstrikes targeted critical infrastructure, including Gaza's only power plant. Hospitals ran out of medical supplies, and families were left without food, water, or shelter. Chapter 8. The war's end and the ceasefire agreement. The January 2025 ceasefire brought temporary relief, but failed to address the root causes of the conflict. Brokered by Egypt and Qatar, the agreement included a truce, prisoner exchanges, and limited humanitarian aid to Gaza. Palestinians, however, remain skeptical, viewing the ceasefire as another stopgap measure that ignores their demands for self-determination and an end to occupation. Chapter 9. Greater Israel and the Two-State Solution. Israel's actions, particularly in the West Bank, suggest a long-term strategy to make a two-state solution unviable. The construction of settlements, the demolition of Palestinian homes, and the annexation of land have fragmented Palestinian territories, making statehood nearly impossible. Palestinians demand East Jerusalem as their capital, but Israel's policies in the city have systematically marginalized its Arab residents. The international community faces a stark choice: support justice and equality, or enable further occupation. Chapter 10. The path forward. Justice or perpetual conflict. The Israel-Palestine conflict will not end without addressing core issues: the right of return for Palestinian refugees, the status of Jerusalem, and the cessation of settlement expansions. Grassroots movements like the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions (BDS) campaign continue to push for accountability. Meanwhile, young Palestinians are leveraging social media to amplify their voices, exposing injustices and rallying global support. The Israel-Palestine conflict is more than a geopolitical struggle. It's a humanitarian crisis and a test of global conscience. The lives lost, the families displaced, and the dreams shattered demand accountability and action. What do you think? Will justice ever prevail in Palestine, or is this region destined for perpetual conflict? Thank you for exploring this critical issue with us on Insight Keep. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it to spread awareness. Let's continue the conversation in the comments below.